Click it, and it looks like it's going now. Hello, one. Hello, all. Welcome to episode 14 of Interviews. Today, my guest is Cody Leach. Cody, say hello.
What's going on, man? And everybody watching?
Yes, thank you for doing this. You've been on my channel quite a few times in chats and things. But in case somebody doesn't know, how would you describe your channel?
It's mostly a movie review channel. It's been more geared towards horror probably in the past 6 months, but I do everything. I do a lot of comic book movies. I've got a wide variety of tastes, but I also do the rare music review. I do occasional video game reviews. Sometimes news happens. I just talk about it. So just a little bit of everything in the entertainment sphere.
Mm-hmm. So last week I had Lee on, and the consensus was that Lee's a sweetheart. And he only just yeah, Lee, sweetie. Only just recently did he have a bit of a true reaction to a shitty comment.
Yes.
I would say yes, dark side, yes. I would say that you're on maybe not on the opposite end, but you're less bothered to speak your mind and not worry about offending someone.
Absolutely.
Is there a reason behind that? Like, if somebody comments or something and you know they're trolling you, is there anything that you think about before saying go fuck yourself or what have you?
Not really. Honestly, I'm a very respectful person. I'm a very easy to get along with person. I treat everybody, I follow the golden rule, treat everybody how you want to be treated. But if you cast the first stone, I'm going to cast a bigger stone. And I've proven that millions of times. Like, it's just one of those things where if you come to have a conversation, like if you disagree with my opinion, fine. That's whatever. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to put a review out and have 150 people tell me I agree with every point you made, because that's boring. If somebody comes in, hey, I thought this, or I don't really like this, that's for good conversation. But if you come in just to be an asshole, I promise you I'm a bigger one. So that's kind of that's the philosophy that I take. If somebody comes in with the intention of trying to insult me or a subscriber or somebody that's just there to hurt, I'm going to hurt back. That's kind of the philosophy I take. If you cast it, then I'm just going to cast it back.
Yeah, no, I have a very certain appreciation for that. With that said, there was a bit of a turmoil,
snafu.
A bit of a high drama event in the last couple of days over on on Lee's Facebook group, Killer Flicks.
Yes,
that we're both members of. You had something interesting to say. I guess it'll be a two-part question. Do you think that what we do, what you guys, I haven't reviewed a movie in forever, what you guys do in reviewing movies, is it dangerous getting too close to filmmakers and or actors?
It depends on how thin their skin is, because it's just one of those things. If you put yourself out there in any way, like if you're a director, if you're a songwriter, if you're an artist, if you're a YouTuber, it doesn't matter. If you put yourself out there, you got to be open to criticism, because otherwise it's going to come at you and you're just going to fail. You're going to freak out. You're going to shut people out. And it's just, that was kind of ridiculous to me. Like, I can understand if I poured months of blood, sweat, and tears into something and people didn't like it. Yes, that's going to be devastating on some degree, but you can't treat everybody like they're wrong because they didn't care for it, or you got to take it as a learning experience to be better. That there's a movie Whiplash that I'm sure you're familiar with, where he says the most dangerous set of words you can tell anybody is good job. And it's one of those things. It's the thing, the catalyst for the entire snafu, as I called it, was so lighthearted from the way that I took it, that to me just the reaction was totally unwarranted. Like, if it was just a reaction like, I really didn't care for some of the humor here, I wish you guys would do this, and then that was it, fine. Then that would have been a great conversation to have. But the way that it was handled was just like, are you fucking kidding me right now? I mean, it was like hours later before I could actually watch the review that caused it. So I didn't, all I saw was the reaction. And when I finally saw the review, I was just like, this is what got that much anger and spite, and the sideways comments at all YouTubers, like we're all just kind of lazy narcissists all of a sudden. And it was just
narcissist. That was the word that was just like Really?
Yeah, and you know, and that's the other thing too. Like, if you want to, if you get offended at one person, that's fine. But when you start grouping everybody in, like you're all evil, that's when you
Yeah.
kind of lose your stance.
You also made a reference that if you had done a review of a similar film, that it would have been way worse. Knowing that perhaps one of the filmmakers would have seen that review, would you have gone as full bore if you were to do a review like that, or is it with the hindsight of this situation in mind? Do you now think, crap, so and so might see this, so
Um, I think I probably would have said the same things. I mean, it wasn't a movie that really offended me on a personal level. Like, those are the movies that I go all out on. Like Freddy's Dead. Those are the ones where I just go ape shit and I say everything that comes to mind. But you know, if I were to do a review of that movie, I definitely would have taken some shots. I definitely would have made some jokes. I think my style of humor, especially whenever I get going on something, would have been much more, you know, for somebody that's thin skinned like that, it would have been much more painful. So, and I think the only difference was I maybe would have hesitated to post the review on Killer Flicks. That maybe would have been the only thing that I would not have done, just because of the potential fallout. But my thoughts would not have been fluffed just to kind of accommodate somebody.
Yeah. So you're so I guess it relates to a situation that happened a couple months ago when Cult of Chucky came out, and Lee, of course, sang its praise and got a retweet.
Got a new Twitter follower.
Yeah. Don Mancini, the director, had quite a good time. If in some way, shape, or form you were aware that Don Mancini got light of your review, does that change anything how you do it? Like, it's just I guess it's different. Don Mancini's a little bit of a bigger name. It seems like this culture in independent horror, especially, is I don't know about you, but I've been offered, like, you know, screener copies way before they come out, and it's almost like there's this unwritten acceptance that, yeah, as long as you're going to watch it early and review it, there's not any sort of negative review. Yeah, a negative review shouldn't be coming out of it, and I feel like it's almost like this unwritten rule. Do you agree with that? Do you?
Yeah, it seems like I've never gotten any kind of written documentation saying that. I do get screeners as well, but it does seem like it does seem like kind of the unwritten rule is, if you like it, feel free to review it. If you don't like it, just kind of pretend you never saw it.
Yeah.
And it's go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That, to me, that seems a little bit unhealthy. Like, if I watch a movie for a movie, you know, I don't cut it any slack if it's independent over a major release. You know, I'm actually probably more inclined to be a little bit harder on a major release, depending on what the flaw was. Like, if they had millions of dollars and the CGI looks like shit or something like that, then you have warrant to say that. But like an independent movie, to me, it's not really, shouldn't be used as an excuse, as like, well, expect some things to suck in this. You know, it doesn't really, that doesn't really gel with me, with my thinking when I watch a movie.
M316 in the chat says, "What's up?"
What's up?
So how long is your channel's relatively new, right? 2 years? Within 2 years?
In August, it'll be 2 years, the end of August.
Yeah. Wow. So what made you decide to start doing, I'm assuming it started as reviews.
Yeah, I was doing a job in construction where I had a lot of driving time. Like, sometimes you would drive 2-3 hours just to get to a job site, and then you have the return trip. So I started getting into podcasts quite a bit. I got bored with the music that I was listening to, just hearing the same songs over and over. So I tried to find other things to kind of fill the air. And after listening to podcasts for a while, I was kind of like, you know, I could probably do this. I got a lot of opinions. I could probably have fun doing this. So I bought a microphone. I did podcasting for, like, I think the beginning of June until the end of August, or maybe the middle of June. But basically that summer, the summer that I started YouTube. And I had a lot of fun with it. I was, you know, I'd review movies. I'd do a top 5 show. I'd do like a Blu-ray haul without showing them and just talk about like that. and I kind of I was intimidated by video editing. I was intimidated with the equipment I'd have to buy, the programming, because I'd never used it before. Like when you watch my very first review, Sausage Party, that's the first time I've ever edited a video. So so I was intimidated by that. And by the end of August, I was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna try it. So I bought a camera, I bought the editing software, everything like that. I shot my first review, edited it, and just kind of went from there. Just figured it would be a more fun way to do what I was doing with the podcast. And then obviously you have a much bigger potential for an audience on YouTube than you do doing any kind of podcasting. And then I wanted to up my production. Like immediately after doing it, it was like heroin. I was like, I got to be better. I got to do better stuff. So then I bought the green screen. I bought the lights. So if you watch my first review, my Sausage Party review, and then immediately watch my second review, which I think was what the hell was it? The Mechanic Resurrection or whatever. You see the jump in production, like in one video. So awesome. That's kind of the journey there, was just, you know, needing something to fill the air, to doing podcasting, to doing YouTube, and then kind of the rest is history.
So were you doing mostly films at first? Did you start to segue into like music and other entertainment media? Like when did you decide to start splitting out?
I kind of did a little bit of music and a little bit of video games on my podcast. Towards the end of it, I was starting to do like multiple shows. I'd have like a movie news show, and then I'd do movie reviews, and then I had a video game show and a music show that I was doing. And right before I kind of abandoned that and went to YouTube. So I was like, you know, my first like month on YouTube, I did the same thing. I basically just tried to do everything I did in my podcast in front of a camera. I had a movie news show that was like an hour something long. Then I would do individual reviews. I had a video game news show that I did. My first music review didn't come until a few months later, but I basically tried to do everything that I was doing on my podcasting. And then I found out very quickly that the way that YouTube videos are digested is very differently than a podcast. You know, people don't have the patience all the time to sit and listen to movie news for an hour and a half. So there was a lot of wasted time and effort in my first couple of months, where I was, you know, still very new at editing. So sometimes I would dump 8 hours easily into doing like a movie news show that would be like an hour and 10 minutes, and I'd get like 10 views, 15 views. Like they might still be sitting at that number for all I know. But I found out after the first month that things, you know, I kind of had to tinker around and do some different things. So I kind of dropped the longer format stuff that wasn't really working, and tried to do more short format, tried to do more reviews. And then obviously if you watch my reviews now, you know, that's changed. There's no longer a 6-minute movie review by me. So I kind of played the YouTube game a little bit, figured out how to do tags, titles, all that good stuff that I was an idiot at the first couple of months. And then I kind of started to you know, sprinkle in a little bit more of what I wanted to do and kind of go my own direction. And, you know, as my following grew, they kind of went with me on the journey of, you know, doing longer reviews. And I'd go back and did the movie news show a couple of times. And, you know, I've done the top 5s and top 10s a few times. So it was kind of it was like a learning experience.
Yeah. You have a couple of videos that aren't movie centric, that are pretty heavy in the views. One thing that I remember quite a big deal was the video you did for Corey from Slipknot and Nickelback. That had quite a. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it had a couple of dozen thousand views, right?
It got up to like close to like 25 or 30,000 or something like that. Yeah, that was the kind of the first one that wasn't a trailer reaction that skyrocketed.
And how? I mean, that was. I'm assuming that the comment section was littered with pro and con.
Absolutely.
And how was that? Was that your first real like, holy shit, this is a lot. This is a lot of heated opinions, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think the video that actually kind of exploded, where it was kind of like overwhelming, just the frequency of the comments and everything like that, was the Cult of Chucky video. The one with the Corey Taylor versus Nickelback asshole. That was the one where it was just so funny, because you'd have people that would be like, there was like dozens of comments of like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And everybody else on the other side was like the complete opposite. They were like, whatever, dude, Nickelback's the greatest band ever, you're a fag. And like, you know, it was there was like no middle. It was either like I'm hero, I'm like a new martyr to these people, or these people want to like, you know, stone me in the street. There was like no middle.
Does YouTube make it to make videos with the fair use law? MN316 asks, does YouTube make it to make videos with the fair use law? I'm sorry, I don't understand that question. I don't know if you do, Cody.
The only thing I can tell you about the fair use law is YouTube doesn't really give a shit. So if that's what you're asking about, you can, you know, I have the fair use doctrine printed in my little video description. I have no idea if that helps at all, but it's there. But yeah, they don't really care. Like fair use basically means like if it's trailers or if you're using it for promotional purposes or review purposes, then you're supposed to be untouchable as far as like to a degree, as far as copyright claims and everything. But YouTube doesn't. They will video clip that's longer than like 25 seconds, they will get you immediately.
Oh, so they're respecifying. Does it make it harder to make videos with the fair use law?
No, absolutely not. There's a lot of people that don't even use trailer clips. They don't use anything like that, and their videos do fine. I mean, like Jeremy Johns, he's the biggest movie reviewer out there, as far as I know. I don't think he ever uses trailer clips. Then you go to, you know, Chris Stuckman uses them, but it's all a matter of what your production value and what style you want in your video. Like for the longest time, I didn't use video clips. I just used pictures. But whenever I got hit on my Bloodfather review, the Mel Gibson movie. They copyrighted my video and took all of the monetization away from it because I used the movie's poster. So in a review for the movie, I used the poster and got flagged for copyright. So at that point, I figured I was going to use whatever the fuck I want. And then I just kind of had to learn, okay, don't use more than a 25-second, 30-second clip or you're going to be in trouble. So I tend to time myself. I'll find the chunk that I want. I'll make sure it's under 30 seconds. And I'll use as many video clips as I want to make my point. Sometimes it's for entertainment value. I'll be making fun of a part and then I show the clip and it just makes it that much better. Sometimes I need a reference. Like if I'm specifying a scene, I want it to be a visual aid, you know, but I like it. Is it necessary? No. I could go on today and never make a movie review with a trailer clip again. And I'm sure I'd be just fine. But that's my preference for the way that I like my videos to look.
Yeah, see, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but yeah, let me just ask you for the sake of getting it out there. Do you prefer, like, hearing what you said about your production value, do you prefer to have a more streamlined look and risk getting a claim rather than, you know, not have any images or video or anything and just kind of avoid any sort of conflict? Is your ultimate goal to have a better looking product?
Yes, it is. I'm a stickler for my production. You know, that when there's times like I've had a few videos where I've had things like on my most recent Star Trek review, The Last Jedi, my microphone became unplugged at some point in the review, and the camera was the audio feed that was on the video, and the audio feed is bad compared to a lavalier mic. It's like night and day. So the only reason that I did not reshoot that video, and a few months ago I would have reshot the entire thing, was because I had very little time to reshoot anything, being that I had a new job, and that the raw footage for that review was like an hour and a half because I had so much to say. So that's one of the few times that you will see that happen. I actually had a just to kind of reinforce when I said yes, I did a back-to-back. I recorded 3 videos back in like last year. I want to say maybe late fall. I did a Mr. Robot season 2 review. I did a review for the premiere of Flash season 3, and I did a review for the premiere of Westworld, back to back to back. And the microphone that I was using, the battery had died. So I recorded all of that, got to the editing stage, realized my audio was not how I wanted it. I thought that I had just unplugged my microphone, so I plugged it back in, recorded all 3 again. Got to the editing stage, and it was the same exact audio. I recorded them all a 3rd time. You're talking about like 3 hours of editing or 3 hours of shooting for all 3 of those videos, because Robot Season 2, there was a lot to talk about with that one. So that's the kind of dedication I put into making sure that my videos have a streamlined look and a streamlined sound and everything like that. So yeah, that's very important to me.
All right, so there's a couple of questions pouring in, and you got corrected that you said Star Trek: The Last Jedi. So careful with the.
Oh God, let me
how dare you?
For you.
Friday the 13th, 2018 is coming out later with Jamie Lee Curtis. Just to
exactly.
Piss more people up. So you don't have to name names or anything like that. When you gravitate towards YouTube channels, does the production value, does it affect whether or not you watch a video, or is it more about I'm into this person, or does is it a blend of two?
For the most part, yeah, it does depend, because I don't have a ton of time to watch a ton of channels. I know guys who are on YouTube that are friends and kind of have these relationships with dozens of reviewers, and they make a valiant effort to watch every single video that they put out. I'll watch pretty much anything you put out. I'll watch anything that Lee puts out for the most part. I got a couple other guys that I'll watch, but production is very important. When I look for a review, the thumbnail obviously is the first thing that catches your eye. If it's just a generic poster, such and such review, then I'm not inclined to to click that one as some others. And then you click on the video, and if it's just a guy with like if this is my production value, what you see right now. All right, guys, this is my review for Star Trek: The Last Jedi. But unless the guy is, or the girl is, like immediately just captivating, which is not very common, I'm gonna look for something else. It's sound is very important, and the production value, especially the video quality and what you got going on in the background, is very important.
Mary Whiteside, hi Mary. She asks, what movie or movies was your introduction at a young age that made you love horror?
Child's Play 3. I think I don't know if I was 3 years old or 4 years old. I'll say 4, because they say you still can't have any memories at 3 years old, but who knows? I remember walking into the apartment that me and my dad lived in, and he was putting on a movie, and I still have the image burned in my brain when the molten plastic swirls and it shows Child's Play 3 coming through. And I sat down and watched Child's Play 3, and my dad had, he's the one that got me into movies and music and everything. So he had a plethora of VHS tapes that he had, and he had most of the Nightmare movies, all the Chucky movies. He had the original Halloween, and it was just like this world got opened up. And luckily I had a father who was very open-minded, and he kind of just, hey, as long as you know that these movies are, this is all fantasy, you can watch whatever the hell you want within reason. Cool. He wasn't letting me watch like Basic Instinct or anything like that, but like Nightmare on Elm Street, something like that. Yeah, sure, go ahead. I literally watched Nightmare on Elm Street before bed. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Yeah. What are some of your favorite YouTubers? Have you ever watched the Rageaholics?
Do what now?
Do you ever watch the Rageaholics channel?
The Rageaholics? Never heard of them.
I'm not familiar. Yeah.
Well, I mean, aside from my friends, I mean, I don't want to list all of them again. Those are obviously the channels that I watch the most, just out of pure interest in having conversations. If you're talking about people that I don't know at all, on the rare occasion I'll watch Jeremy Johns, but I've kind of grown away from him. I used to love him, but until I realized how minimalistic and, dare I say, lazy his videos are, I've kind of lost interest. Chris Stuckman I like on occasion. I don't watch every video that he does. If it's like a movie they get really early advanced screenings for, like I'm sure Black Panther's like a movie that I'll probably watch his review for. John Campea, I watch his stuff a lot, not as much as I used to, but he's one of the movie pundits out there that seems to be the most even keeled as far as his opinion for the most part. Once in a while, he's like 10% insufferable. But most
on one of his things actually.
Yeah, exactly. So there's times when and even myself, like I've asked him questions on Q&As before. Like I asked him, like I was like, "What's your top 3 Rocky movies?" And he's like, "I don't do top 3 questions." And I'm like, "You could have just answered in the same amount of time. You fucking put I don't do top 3
2, 1.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's times where I'm like, all right, dickwad. But like honestly, like he's one of the guys that he puts a lot of videos out. So I watch a lot of his stuff. trying to think of some more YouTubers I watch.
Well, let me
I actually watch some food review channels too, so that's kind of a little off the wall
makeup
thing.
tutorials.
Yeah.
So let me pivot the question and say, what were you into before you got started that made you think, you know what, this I could do this? You know, were there videos, or it doesn't even have to be movie reviewers, just like a moment where you're like, you know what, this seems like I can do this, or you know, something that inspired you or you enjoyed before you were a YouTuber.
Before I was a YouTuber, well, this is actually kind of a funny story. So like, let's go back to like 2009. I discovered Jeremy Johns. I discovered Chris Stuckman, a guy that his channel unfortunately never really took off, but I'm actually kind of somewhat friends with him. Robert Storms, I found his channel and I was a subscriber to his for a while. Back in the day, his channel was Storms Inc., but he used to do a lot of movie reviews and he would do rant videos where he would just go nuts. And that was kind of his calling card for a while. Those three mainly was the ones that got me to be like, you know, I could do this. So there wasn't a whole lot of horror channels back in the day. I mean, that was still kind of early in the YouTube days. But I actually had a YouTube channel back in the day for like, back in like 2009 for like a month. I had like 5 videos, but it was the example that I was saying. All I had was my webcam and it was me shooting shit on my couch with stuff in the background that made no sense. And it was, you know, the camera angles made no sense. Sometimes I would hold my computer in my lap and like the review would be like this, you know, Halloween, this and that. And, but I did, lost my earphones. I did a review for the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I did a review for, I had a little video series. It was 4 videos that I called More Blood for Your Buck. It was when it was like a summertime or something where there was like 4 horror movies that came out like back to back to back. There was The Final Destination, Halloween 2, The Collector, and A Perfect Getaway. And I saw all 4 of them and I was basically giving reviews for them and telling you which one was the best for your money. So that was, but it was so terrible.
Concept.
Like
I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah,
discover that or go back to it. That's a neat. I like that idea.
Yeah, so that was kind of an early. I wish I still had the video so that I could actually put it on there as like a funny, like, look how stupid I was back in the day. But yeah, it was so bad that I was just like, I can't do this. I don't have enough, either the money or I don't have the talent for all of this, and you know, shelved it until last summer, and all of a sudden now I guess it was like a reboot, if you will. But yeah, those were the 3 kind of. Jeremy Johns, because he makes it look so easy, and it's because he does it in a very easy way. It's just a plain background. He tells you what's going on. He does the quick cut thing, which I don't care for too much unless it's him. And then Chris Stuckman, who is kind of more on the professional side, I guess, given, you know, more articulated thoughts. So those are kind of the opposite extremes that I was like, no, I could fit somewhere in the middle there. I could do this.
So this is something that I would have asked Lee, but his situation's a little bit different. You have kids.
Yes.
And you know, this is, you know, as much as you put into this channel, this isn't what you do for a living. How do you find time to balance life, work, and YouTube?
That's an amazing question. It's very difficult now with my newer job because I have to get up very early in the morning. But basically, what I have to do, 2 nights out of the week, Holly is home, so she can help watch the kids. She can kind of keep them out. So if I want to do any kind of recording or anything like that, she can kind of help me with that. But most of the time, I actually choose not to. I just use the time that she's home to have time with her. The way that I usually have to do it is, you know, the nights that she is not home, she works nights at the movie theater, and it's me and 3 kids the whole night after I get home from work. So what I have to do is usually wait until the 1-year-old, my daughter, goes to sleep or takes a nap, record whatever I need to record. And then as far as editing, I basically have my computer in the living room, even while she's awake, and I just have to edit it in pieces. I'll edit a little bit. I'll entertain her. I'll cook dinner. I'll edit a little bit. You know, I'll clean up a little bit. I'll make sure everybody's going to bed and everything. And it's just like finding any spare moment to kind of fit, okay, I can edit a few things real quick, or, I could do an intro for this video that I'm going to be doing next week really quick.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the way that I have to do it. Sometimes weekends, if something's going on and magically I have like an afternoon to myself in the house, that's like a godsend for my YouTube channel. That's, I can knock out like 2 or 3 reviews. The other way that I do it is I also batch record. I don't know if everybody does that, but like if I want to do, like, for example, the Friday the 13th review series I have coming up, if I want to do the first 3 Friday the 13th movies, I don't record one, sit down and edit that one, and then go back and record. I'll record all 3 reviews, have it on my computer, and then I can just edit it in pieces whenever I have free time and just kind of chip away at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem like, getting in front of a camera is a little bit more, especially in that situation, it's a bit more difficult than editing. Editing, you can watch the kids while editing, and you can't watch the kids while filming something. That's a good way to do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not when kids are screaming in the background or everything. Like, there's some of my videos you can actually hear my kids screaming, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to keep going.
Here, just wear the styrofoam around your mouth because I need soundproofing, damn it.
Exactly. Go outside.
So there are people that seem to find excuses for. I'm one of them. That seem to find excuses for not being productive. And so, knowing how much you balance, does it frustrate you hearing somebody that says something like, I just can't find the time?
It depends. There's some people I don't know their situations. And it also is a difference in drive. I'm naturally a very driven person, so I usually expect that I'm going to go a little bit farther than most people, and I don't really hold that. I don't hold that against other people. But I do have some people. I'm not going to name any names, but I do have some people that I know that it's almost like they spend more time making excuses than they do actually creating content, and it's frustrating on that level.
I've had a rough year. Leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. Not going to name any names, but no, but no, it frustrates me when the excuses keep coming. Like, it's one thing if you're just like, look, I'm just not as into it as everybody else, or like, I it's just not my thing. Sometimes I just want to go off and do other things, and that's fair. Sure. Nobody's holding you hostage to do videos for basically free. Right. But when you if you have somebody that's constantly promoting their channel, and they're constantly talking about what they're going to do for YouTube, or this is going to be my calling card, or this is going to be my path to success, or something like that, and they never do anything, it's just like, you spend more time talking about your channel than you actually do your channel. You know what I mean? It just says, and it takes just as much time sometimes to throw on the camera and just do a video really quick than to sit down and have a 4-hour, Facebook chat with everybody about why you're on a hiatus. And and life does get in the way sometimes. Sometimes it's unwanted. Sometimes you do need a break. Sometimes you do need to step away, and hopefully everybody understands. But just like, get away from YouTube for a while, get away from the camera, enjoy your spare time. Don't, work a full-time job, take care of 3 kids, work a part-time job with YouTube, and sleep. So it's there's definitely times when it's frustrating, but for the most part, I don't really try to read too much into it. I don't know everybody's situation, so I don't try to act like I do.
All right, so I guess it's a similar version of the same question, but recently the horror community has kind of bound together in this recent YouTube. I want to call it a crackdown. I don't know what you'd call it, but do you think all channels need saving, and all channels need monetization, and to have access to the 0.01 cent per video that seems to be quite popular in our community lately?
Absolutely not. And I'm actually one of the few people that I kind of got frustrated with that whole movement. I wasn't, not to sound like a dick, but I wasn't retweeting everybody's channels, and I wasn't, hashtagging Save HorrorTube and all that kind of stuff. I was kind of on the more frustrated side, because the reality is it doesn't really change that much at all. You know what I mean? Like, everybody freaked out as if all of a sudden you're going to have to find a new way to feed your kids at night. or like, your channel's never going to be seen unless it's monetized, or, it was ridiculous to me. Like, to a degree, it's frustrating. Like, there's certain limitations they put on there that's kind of like, it's not so much the limitations they put, it's just how wishy-washy YouTube has been lately with just kind of throwing new limitations on there here and there. And, oh, well, if we find out you're not really, ad friendly, we're going to put this little yellow sign on you now. And it's going to, just these new things that keep coming with no explanations, and algorithms that don't work and they refuse to acknowledge or even kind of explain. Like, that overall thing is extremely frustrating. And that overall thing, I can get behind a movement, hashtag what the fuck YouTube. But when you get into the thing where it's just like, okay, well, now for us to give you money that we don't owe you at all, you have to get 1,000 subscribers, which is a very attainable goal if you're a good channel. And you have to have, 4,000 watch hours in a year or something like that, which if you're a channel that's, at least somewhat dedicated, it's a very attainable goal. So it was frustrating me that all of a sudden it was like these limitations that they're putting on, like people were acting like it was these huge, like ridiculous, like you have to be a superstar to reach this. Yeah. And I'm like, I reached 1,000 subscribers in 9 months. And I was a dumbass for the first 3 of them. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. Right. And, I try not to use myself as like an example for the way it should be done, but you make a channel, you make sure your production is there. You have to have talent. You have to have an opinion that people want to hear or that they're going to respect. And you have to have reliability to your subscribers that, okay, if I subscribe to your channel, you're going to stick to this production. You're going to stick to this type of opinion, and you're going to at least somewhat regularly post content. And most of the channels that I've seen that freaked out over that don't do at least 2 of those things. And so it was frustrating to me that everybody was all of a sudden relying on Twitter retweets to kind of build their channel instead of actually putting the groundwork in and building it the way you're supposed to do it. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree quite heavily. The only thing that I might butt heads with you on is if there's money to be made, like YouTube Red, there's a bit of a gray area there. If somebody who signs up for YouTube Red, and their favorite channel is Joe Schmo, who has 5 subscribers, and they're paying $10 a month to not have ads on their videos. I mean, Joe Schmo should see some of that, I would think, if he's getting the watch from somebody who's putting the money into the site. I mean, I'm not saying, Joe Schmo deserves the $10 monthly fee or whatever it is, but it does seem a little off that if somebody's paying extra to not have ads and their favorite channel is something that doesn't qualify under that window, it's a little troubling. I'll be honest, that's my own ignorance for not really knowing how the YouTube Red things works. I always click not now on the thing. You want to try YouTube? No, not now. And that's about all I know about YouTube Red. Beyond that, I don't know shit about it. So if there's another side to the monetization, that's just my own ignorance on that side of it, to be honest with you. Well, kudos for admitting that you're a bit ignorant about something. That's not many people would do that. Cody, what is your favorite old school horror movie? I don't know how you define old school. I mean, most people's favorite horror movies are in the 80s. Is that what you consider old school? I mean, 30 years. I mean, I guess if you're going to say old school as far as like on the brink of the beginning of horror, I'd probably say it's between Black Christmas and the original Halloween. If you fast forward a little bit, I mean, my favorite horror movie I often say is it's between The Thing and The Lost Boys. So if you consider those old school, then it's one of those 2. But depends on your definition of old school, I guess. Cody, do you think people's idea of what makes something a horror film has changed to the extent that now films should be labeled horror no longer are? Wow, Brian, that was quite a wordy question. I don't, to a degree, I want to say that the term horror is subjective. If it's horrifying to you, then I guess it's horror, but there's definitely some movies that people put under the horror, umbrella that I'm like, get the fuck out of here. That's a thriller. One of them we were talking pretty heatedly about on Scream Stream. Get Out is it's not a horror movie. It has horror elements. There's some horrifying themes in that movie, but it's not a horror movie the way that I define horror. Even Split was kind of, teetering on the edge, where it was more of like a psychological thriller, not really a horror, but that's when you start splitting hairs like that, it's kind of like the whole the rock and metal thing. Like, is it metal? No, it's progressive, aggressive metal. It's, you know, grindcore, acoustic, aggressive metal, and it's like it's fucking metal. Shut up. Like, you know, it's it's one of those things. Like, there's certainly movies I'm like, that's not horror. Don't call it horror. But I do kind of, if somebody explained why they consider it horror, I'm not going to sneeze at it.
So Monty re-specifies that he's talking about movies back in the 60s.
The 60s?
Yeah. Psycho.
I haven't seen too many of those. So yes, Psycho is probably the only one. So by default, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho would be my favorite.
What's the scariest experience you've ever had in your life?
Scariest experience? Oh God, that's a hard one. I haven't really had any like really like genuinely terrifying things aside from just the regular old shit that happens in life. You know, you get the news that somebody's sick, or, you know, the kids are out playing and you forget that, you know, you were supposed to be watching them, and all of a sudden it's quiet. You're like, what the fuck? And you run outside. You know, the little everyday things. Yeah. This wasn't really terrifying, but it is kind of a cool story. So for the sake of being able to tell it, I'll kind of take the question in this direction. There was actually a kind of a weird experience that I had. Whenever somebody asks, like, if you believe in paranormal stuff, I always tell this story. I want to say I was like maybe 11 years old. My brother was probably 4 then. We shared a room at the time. We had bunk beds. And the way that I had the way that the bunk bed was, the way that the side that I slept on, where the pillow was, the heating vent was right below. And oftentimes at night I would push my pillow off the bed in my sleep and it would cover the heating vent. And my dad, for like a month, would constantly get that fucking pillow off of there, sleep on the other end of the bed, you're going to start a fire. And I was, you know, whatever, Dad, you know how kids do. You're like, whatever, fucking old person. And then so one night I was, you know, not listening, and I was sleeping, and then my brother had these 2 Power Ranger walkie-talkies, and they were sitting on top of the TV. And it was like probably 2 a.m, and I was woken up at night by the sound of the walkie-talkies on, you know, the sound that walkie-talkies make when nobody pushes the button. And I'm sitting there like, you know, it's kind of like when you have to piss, you don't really want to get up, so you're trying to pretend it's not really there. You're like, what the fuck is that? And, you know, and then I finally got up and I'm like, what is that noise? And I go over to the walkie-talkies, I turn them off, and then I look over and my pillow's on the heating vent, and I go and pick it up, and the thing is red hot. And I'm like, oh shit, I guess Dad was right. So I take it off and I sleep on the other end of the bed. And the next morning, I don't remember if I asked my brother or if I just investigated it myself, but the moral is, or the end of the story was, there was no batteries in those fucking walkie-talkies.
Oh, was the pillow.
No, no, it was the walkie-talkies, but something was making the walkie-talkies work to wake me up to get that fucking pillow off.
Oh, interesting.
So call it, you know, divine intervention, you know, whatever. God came down and stopped these motherfucking bullets. Yeah, that's kind of that's not a terrifying experience, but that's where my mind went.
So about the communities, there's different fandom in horror community, you know, superhero community. I mean, you and I share a certain disdain for hype, or at least I'm assuming so. I don't want to put, you know, words or thoughts into your persona, but what do you think the differences are between the exaggerated fandom, whether it be superhero fans and horror fans? Are there differences, similarities?
I think the comic book fans take it way farther than horror fans do. At least in my experience. When you come across a troll or somebody that's like a quote unquote fanboy in the comic book world, it's a much more volatile experience than if you come across somebody that, you know, is going to cuss you out because you put Rob Zombie's Halloween above Halloween 4. You know, that's most of the most like kind of disgusting comments that I've gotten have been from comic book videos. Like, hey, really? Wonder Woman was great. You fucking DC fanboy. You just hate all the Marvel movies. Really? What about all the 4 Marvel movies that I gave great reviews to? So I think exaggerated fandom, fake fandom, whenever you get into that point, that's where I question somebody's actual fandom. If you're to the point where you think that the way that you have to operate is, if I'm a fan of Marvel, I have to. It's a prerequisite. I have to hate everything that DC does. Or if I'm a fan of DC, it's a prerequisite. I have to fucking hate everything that Marvel does. I don't see that in the horror community. I don't see a Halloween fan saying that, for me to be a true Halloween fan, I have to hate Friday the 13th. It's I think for the most part, when you get into some of the kind of more frustrating fandoms with the horror community is when they hold things a little bit too close to the chest. Like Halloween rankings or something like that, or just intolerance of other opinions overall, I think is where it kind of goes into. But yeah, it's much more volatile on the comic book side.
So what's worse, a Marvel or DC guy or a horror franchise guy or gal? Excuse me.
I think that's a hard one to answer because there's two separate annoyances with them.
All right, well,
the comic book
separate annoyances then. Yeah.
So the comic book side. Thank you. I love you. The comic book side is more so people who are. CP says hello. The comic book side is more people who have pledged some kind of blood allegiance to some corporate side, and their rationale for why it needs to be that way is always ridiculous and annoying and kind of disgusting if they take it too far. The horror side, it's more so annoying because oftentimes when they go that way, they have absolutely no reasonable explanation for why they think that way. Like when somebody cusses you out for giving Freddy's Dead a shit review, but they can't explain in human terms why Freddy's Dead is a great movie. That's the kind of shit you get on the horror side in my experience. Is, this is a great movie. Fuck you. Why? Because fuck you. Yeah, exactly. Because exactly. So I mean, so when you get into the comic book side, you get people that will pull out, the fucking Bible of the 1980s comics and all that kind of. This movie's shit because they disregarded this comic book storyline. The outfit's a different shade of red, and all this stuff, and they pull out all this knowledge to kind of justify.
Supposed to be shiny, damn it.
Exactly. They pull out all this knowledge that is kind of impressive on one end of why they're getting into your ass, but they still come across like dumbasses. But most of the time when I get that reaction to horror side, they have nothing to back it up with. It's just you think differently than me, so fuck you.
Do you think that as a horror fan, I can easily admit this. Do you think that perhaps it's inherently the fact that horror movies, for the most part, are lesser quality films than say this modern boom of superhero films? I mean, I can't argue that Friday the 13th is better than Iron Man. From a technical standpoint, it's just impossible. So do you think maybe that has something to do with it? The fact that these superhero movies are just better made movies, and perhaps horror fans as a whole know that we are into a niche sort of genre?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And that does make it harder to defend sometimes when you're defending a movie that's a guilty pleasure by default versus a movie that's made $800 million. But yeah, I don't have too much commentary on that, but yeah, that does play into it a little bit.
Okay. What is your favorite genre of horror and your least favorite?
Least favorite right now, just because I'm kind of tired of the craze, is like demon possession horror. The Exorcist found footage movies. It seems maybe not in the past year. I don't remember anything really in 2017 with that, but up to 2016, that seemed like most of the horror movies that we were getting was, Devil's Due and stuff like that. Favorite, mostly for nostalgic reasons, is probably slasher. You don't see it too much anymore. Hopefully that changes soon. But those are probably the movies that I hold closest to my heart. Some of the Child's Play and the Friday the 13th and Halloween and stuff like that. So yeah, that's slasher's probably my favorite in the horror.
What's a song or artist that you listen to that would surprise people?
Well, you've actually made fun of me for it for a couple times.
Oh
I'm
no,
I'm a rock and metal fan, but I do listen to Aaron Lewis's country stuff,
no,
and
no.
it's and the funny thing is I usually like can't stand country at all, like especially modern country where it's basically just kind of twangy pop. But
Hmm.
Aaron Lewis as a songwriter is just someone who is just so incredible in my opinion that
No,
I
I
can
agree. He's
listen
got a great
to.
voice.
Yeah, his singing voice and his songwriting ability. You know, I've always been a huge fan of Stained. I've always,
Hmm.
you know, I watch a lot of his YouTube stuff whenever he's got like acoustic shows and everything, and he does covers, and you know, the dude's just incredible. So whenever he switches that creativity over into the country genre, it kind of it's like a gateway drug for me. You know, I can kind of go over and I can still appreciate all his artistry, but I can kind of hear it in a different light.
Hmm.
And he kind of goes for that more old school country. You know, that old kind of Hank Williams Jr., you know, Merle Haggard, some of those older like outlaw country. He's kind of like that style, and
Hmm.
that style is kind of the country that kind of defined the genre of country back in the day before it kind of got modern. So that's probably one that would surprise most people that see that, you know, Metallica and Godsmack and everything, and I mean
Hmm.
shit, Iron Maiden and Doc and everything behind me. There's no, you know, there's no Garth Brooks back here. So it's
Hmm. So the countryside of Aaron Lewis. That's interesting. Um,
yes, and I actually saw him live, so I'll take it a step further.
well, does he mix it up? Does he play all country? Does he play some of his Stain stuff?
Right now, he's playing all country, but he does country versions of a couple of Stain songs, which
Ooh,
surprised me.
that's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. He did a
Uh,
country version of "Everlong" by Foo Fighters. He did a country version of uh, "It's Been a While," a country version of "Outside," and a couple others that kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought he would kind of stick to his country stuff, but he mixed it because he knows his fans want it.
mm, that's interesting. So, what are some of the bands that you like that you're not afraid to admit?
It's hilarious that this is a band that you have to defend your fandom for nowadays,
Mhm.
but I am totally unashamed that I love Metallica. I don't give a shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, ever since Load came out, which is the album that followed Black Album when they
Mhm.
exploded. Some people, it's even before Black Album. They've kind of been the band that's popular to shit on. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You know, they cut their hair. The music sucks now, or you know, this
Mhm.
doesn't sound like Master of Puppets. They suck now, and
Mhm.
it's you know,
Yeah.
when I did a review,
Some people say when it started with Jason, it's just like really, and Justice for All
yeah,
yeah. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
the guy that you can't hear any of his fucking bass lines in the album ruined it. You know? So that's a band that I really don't get into arguments about it anymore. But like back in the day, like in high school and stuff like that, when people who weren't really metal fans would try to talk metal, it would be hilarious.
Mm.
And even I did a review on their most recent album, and that one was one of the more volatile comment sections because I gave it a really good review, and you get people that, oh, whatever, Metallica's sucked since 1985, and you know, you're just riding their dick and all this kind of stuff. So
Wow.
they're the biggest metal band that's ever existed for the most part,
Mhm.
arguably. So they're kind of the popular ones to make fun of. So that's a band that I shouldn't have to defend my fandom for because they're
Right.
Metallica. But
Right.
you know, you do, if you know the metal community, you definitely do have to defend it.
It's strange because they're like the Beatles as far like a lot of stuff
Yeah,
that you have today you wouldn't have without Metallica. So it's kind of uh,
yeah.
it is it's abnormal that people don't understand that. Some
Hmm.
of the other ones maybe that.
Another. I've found that Godsmack's not very popular to say you're a fan of, which
Mm,
I've kind of. I used to be a fanatic. I mean, my first tattoo is a Godsmack logo, for
mhm.
Christ's sake. But I used to be a fanatic. Their past couple of albums haven't impressed me as much as their older stuff, but I still love them as a whole. Trying to think of other bands that
Well,
a band that
you're in Georgia, right?
yes,
Is Seven Dust that still that big a deal down there?
in Atlanta, not too much
Oh,
where I'm at.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, and they're
Sorry.
a big Atlanta band. Um, Alter Bridge is often a band that I say I'm a big fan of that people kind of they kind of raise their head at, because they're a very under listened to band, a very underrated band, and most people only know them for their more commercial, somewhat pop rock like singles. But if you actually listen to their albums, like they have straight up like heavy hardcore metal, they have hard rock, classic rock. I mean, they just have so many different genres going in that when you actually listen to the band beyond the stuff that the radio tells you to listen to, it's a totally different band than what's advertised.
Sure.
Sure. So that's one that, I say like, oh, I'm an Alter Bridge fanatic. They're like, really? They only know like one song by Alter Bridge, but they're like, that's not Metallica style music.
So I was it's interesting. I was going to ask you if it had something to do with the fact that it's partially Creed. Creed's another band that you cannot.
Yeah, that has that stigma as well. The few people that actually know what Alter Bridge, oh, you mean Creed with a different singer? Yeah. And it's funny because like, I mean, I loved Creed back in the day before the singer went ape shit, but but they're totally different. Like Creed, some of the heavier stuff from Creed maybe, but Creed and Alter Bridge is night and day. Like it's not just literally let's take this singer and put him in Scott Stapp's place and keep moving.
Yeah. Well, you can. I mean, I could hear some of the lead guitar is definitely Creed-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, you're absolutely right. There's a battle in the chat. I don't know what the hell's going on. How big?
Oh shit! Drama.
How big is your DVD/Blu-ray collection? It's ginormous.
It's huge. I was gonna do a Blu-ray haul or a Blu-ray collection video at 5,000 subscribers, and I've already described how hard it is to find time to record videos in a separate room. Trying to kick everybody out of the living room and film an entire Blu-ray collection of that magnitude it's proven to be something that I'm probably gonna have to wait for like an entire day of freedom to actually record. It's somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 Blu-rays.
Holy shit.
I'm pretty sure. My DVD collection is mostly at my dad's house, but those were probably around 500 or 600. But that was back when I was in high school and didn't have any money. So that was basically whatever DVDs I could scrounge together from my part-time job or whatever my parents were gracious enough to buy me. So yeah, as far as Blu-rays and 4Ks and all that kind of stuff, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 ish.
That's quite impressive.
Yeah.
So there's an argument over Freddy's dead.
Oh God.
Yeah.
What argument? It sucks. There's no fucking argument.
Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks more than you're saying it sucks.
And I'm right, damn it. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
So the like you said recently, you've started taking a focus on horror. What's how do you feel the comments? I mean, it kind of alludes to what we're talking about. We've kind of touched on it. Is horror comments, are they different than a regular movie review comment? So
yes, because when you most of the movies that I've reviewed have been older movies. Like I've done the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Child's Play, and the Texas Chainsaw franchise. I've done a couple of Halloween movies, a couple of sporadic like Stephen King movies, like I did Pet Sematary, I did Christine. And when you're getting a comment from somebody that loves those movies as much as you do, you feel the love and the shared passion for that movie in the comment more so than if you post a review for Black Panther and everybody's like, yeah, this movie was great review. Not saying that those comments aren't good. I mean, I love all the comments, but I mean, when you get into something where like, oh, dude, this movie was my favorite movie, I grew up with it. Like, you just get into more kind of the lifelong fandom with some of the horror fans than I do with the other videos.
What is your favorite video, and what is a video that while I'm not saying it's not your all right, well, just answer your favorite video first. What is your favorite video that you have on your channel?
Probably that the top 5 horror sequels that I did with Lee, just because of all the style I put into it. And I put a lot of hours into that one with Lee had the TV that he was kind of promoting at the time for the VHS reviews in his little frame. So I kind of went with that, and I kind of got a transparent TV and stuck it on mine. And I made, every time that I would switch frames, I would put him in the TV and I put me in the TV, and I had like the VHS collection stacking up for the top fives for each movie. So like a lot of that kind of throwback flavor that I put into that one, I was probably most excited to debut that one.
That was a fun video. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I mean, the video itself was fun, just talking about, horror sequels, and I think that was the first collab that me and Lee ever did too, so that was cool in its own right. But that was the most fun. Beyond that was probably the Pitch Wars video that I did with the comic book, just because that was the longest video that I've ever done in production and in just overall length. And it was the premiere of that Pitch Wars show that I was trying to kind of get rolling, so that had a very similar level of excitement of, okay, I've put this many man hours into this. It's the first video that I've dumped this much time and energy and risk into since the first couple of months in YouTube, and now I have a good following. So, you know, upload. Let's see how this goes.
And a video that, while again, not saying that you dislike it or anything, you're just kind of surprised at the, whether it be view count, response, comment section. You know, just something like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen.
I'll do two, one on a positive light and one on a negative light. On the negative side, I did a video where it was around Christmas time, or in the holiday season, and I was basically doing a PS4 versus Xbox One video to kind of go over the pros and cons of each and give my final opinion on which one you should buy. And I did a lot of research because, I mean, aside from which one has the better games, which one runs better, which one, you know, does this and that, I had to do a lot of research for the technical shit, like which one has a higher resolution, which one has a higher GPU and CPU. And I did I made it like a boxing match. Like I had style put into it with like a boxing arena behind me, and I had a whole intro that I made with a bunch of video game clips from both sides, and the, you know, Ready to Rumble guy was in there. I did all this stuff to make it this really fun video that was going to be kind of technical and informative, and that fucker tanked. I mean, tanked. It was right on like the cusp of when I really started to kind of get some momentum. So I expected, like, okay, this is a video that now I can dump some hours into and people will watch it. And I dumped a lot of time and energy into the production of that one, and to getting the research right and to film it. And I think it's sat at like 60 views for months. I don't know what it's at now, but it was one of the more heartbreaking things of, damn, I put so much time into that for nothing. On the opposite side of that, it's currently my highest viewed video, and I had no idea that it was going to be, was when I did my little impromptu video when they released the news that Jamie Lee Curtis was going to return for Halloween. And I was getting flooded, you know, on Killer Flicks, Twitter, everywhere, with people. You're like, fuck yeah, this is the greatest day ever. You know, it's a national holiday now. Jamie Lee Curtis is returning. And I was like, I felt like the only person on earth that was like, I am not excited about this news. So I turned on the camera and explained why. And slowly over time, that thing just ignited. It is sitting now at like 60,000 views or something like that. I mean, it still gets views and comments. Every time there's a new Halloween update, I get some more comments. So
enjoy those comments last night then.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the video where like it just slowly started climbing, and I was just like, holy shit. Like I remember messaging Lee, like, dude, mine's at like 30 fucking thousand views. What the hell happened? Like, and I think it was because I was one of the very rare videos that had kind of a more pessimistic view on the news, where there was a dime a dozen videos of everybody going, fuck, she's back. You know, so it was just one of those things where being kind of the odd man out kind of paid off.
Eric asks, how did you get to know CP and Lee?
Lee, this was when Rings came out, so I think it was like February of last year. I was looking for other reviews, and I was also kind of trying to touch into the horror community a little bit. So I was going through YouTube. I just put like Rings review, and I think Lee was like one of the top 3 or 4 reviews. And I watched all 4 of the top ones or 5 of them. And I left a comment on Lee's video. It was like, hey man, you know, I agree with this. I disagree with this. If you get a chance, check out my video. And, you know, Lee's always somebody that's very good about honestly giving somebody a chance. Like if you're like, hey, check out my stuff. Okay. And he will actually watch the video and he'll tell people like, hey, this guy's, he only got 5 subscribers, but he's got a lot of talent. Check him out. And he checked out my review, commented on it. And then I commented on another one of his videos, and he did a Halloween ranking and gave me a shout out in it because I was the one that kind of asked him, hey, how would you rank the Halloween movies, and kind of inspired the video, I guess. So then that spawned into like a little bit of a YouTube friendship where I just kind of comment on his video, he'd comment on mine. And then over time, I was familiar with you because I was watching Scream Stream every once in a while, but really didn't somewhat meet until I was the guest on Scream Stream, like the 6th or 7th episode or whatever back in the day, whenever we were talking about horror sequels. Yeah. So that's kind of how I met CP, and then the rest is history from there, pretty much.
Yeah. That's accurate. I see. Yeah, I wanted to say it was the Alien Covenant talk, but you're right. It was the sequel thing first, and then immediately, or not immediately, but soon after that, I think we had you on with Brian and Peter getting in a heated argument before you had.
Let me finish my bloody point.
It was like 20 minutes before you could say a word.
And we were still talking about the fucking opening credits or something. Like we weren't even into the movie yet. I was like, holy shit.
So you don't like the casting then?
Yeah.
Are you a PS4 or an Xbox guy?
PS4 all the way. I won't get into a ton of it, but I like the exclusive games on Sony more. Like I like Uncharted, I like God of War, I like The Last of Us and all that more than I like Gears of War and Halo. They're much better built, they last better, and something that annoys the living fuck out of me with my Xbox One, you have to install every single game that you buy for an Xbox One, and it takes like 2 hours. When you buy a new game for Xbox One, you're not playing it for like 3 hours because you got to install it, then you got to update it. PS4, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it doesn't take up your entire memory card or your entire hard drive after you buy 4 games, and you have to delete games, and then if you want to play it again, you got to reinstall it. Like there's so many things about the Xbox One that annoy the piss out of me that even if there was some better games on there, I would probably still prefer PS4. The only thing that Xbox One has on PS4 is that they support backwards compatibility, and they do 4K. The 4K. Yeah, exactly. I was searching for the words, but yeah, they support 4K, where PS4 you have to buy. I don't even think the PS4 Pro supports 4K. And that's the 4K fucking PS4.
Yeah, I think it's 4K video games. I don't think it's 4K movies.
Yeah, exactly. So that my Xbox One is my 4K Blu-ray player, basically. I hardly ever use it for games. So yeah, Sony makes some really baffling decisions sometimes that you're like, okay, I can understand why people would be annoyed with this, but it's like 80-20 for me. 80, on the PS4 side.
Sasha has a joke. He says, why are they called shoutouts? It's never shouted. So I'll take that and run with it a little bit. You mentioned that Lee shouted you out in a video. How important do you think shoutouts are to you, and do you think it's worthwhile if people request it from you?
I've actually gotten requests for shoutouts from some of my commenters and subscribers, and I've declined them. I don't want a culture of shoutouts in my channel personally. It works amazing for what Lee does. Lee has a very unique approach to his community and his videos, like with the drums, watches, and all that kind of stuff. Like it totally works for the way that he does it. I do not want to have to start off a review that I have a very specific format and a very specific formula for with, all right, before I get into the review, I'm going to give a shout out to such and such, such and such, such and such, and such and such. So it's just something that, I try to be respectful about it. Like, hey, like I totally flattered that you would want to be, shouted on my channel. Thank you so much for the support. Glad you liked the video. I just don't do shout outs on my channel, something along those lines. So if I was doing like maybe a channel update, like I do shout outs for my Patreon supporters because I think that that's merited. You know what I mean? If I have somebody, that's one of my perks. If you join a certain level, I give a shout out video for you. And that's just to kind of make them feel special. On the back end of it, it also keeps the word Patreon in people's ears. So that, what is this Patreon thing? And then it kind of draws them to the Patreon to figure out what that whole thing's about. Because I assume that some people don't stay till the last 5 seconds of my video where I say, hey, check out my Patreon page. So shout outs are great for some people. It's just not my thing.
All right. So you said the magic P word that sets a fire to a lot of people. You've been quite wordy, which again, you're my hero in a lot of senses. So there was a heated debate with Patreon. As a creator and as somebody who, I don't know, doesn't perhaps thinks that somebody has a Patreon that doesn't deserve it. What, once and for all, what is your opinion on Patreon and why people are so opinionated one way or another?
People are opinionated because 9 times out of 10 they don't know what the fuck Patreon is at all. They just see it as money exchange. My thoughts on Patreon, especially in times when YouTube's policies are so up in the air and they change on a dime, it is a godsend for people that put the time and the effort in that I do. I mean, that Lee does, that whenever you are on your role, that you put a lot of production into your stuff, like all your 80 the films that you ranked, like that probably took some serious time.
I'm just coming back.
Yeah, exactly. So like when you have something that you dump a lot of passion into, and first and foremost, it's because it's fun. It's because you're passionate about it. Otherwise you wouldn't be into it. YouTube doesn't pay the bills on its best day.
Right.
So when you have an avenue like that where you give people an avenue to say, like, I love what you're doing, I want to support it because I know that YouTube, the platform, does not support it necessarily, and you get perks, you get little thing. Some channels it's just as simple as a shout out or like an email. Some channels, like me, I do Patreon request reviews. If you join a certain rank, you can tell me a review and I will put the time and energy into not only watching it but reviewing it for you. So, and there's some other channels that I'm friends with that do a lot of other things. But it's, at the end of the day, all it is an avenue for you to give something back to your fans and for your fans to give something back to you if they are inclined to. Nobody's required to. I don't know of any channels that holds their channel hostage over Patreon. Like, if you want to see my reviews, you have to donate or anything like that. I don't know anybody that does that. That would be something that I would understand an argument for. You brought up channels that quote unquote don't deserve to have a Patreon or shouldn't have a Patreon.
I said that, not you. Right.
Yeah. I think you need to be at a certain level before you consider it. I didn't even consider Patreon until I was approaching 1,000 subscribers. To me, that was when I was like, okay, I've got enough of a following that this might be something to look into. And to be completely honest with you, even when I posted that Patreon page for the first time, I didn't expect that in a year I'd have maybe 3 patrons. I've got 27. So the amount of support that I've gotten has been incredible. I mean, like, overwhelming. Like, wow, 27 people like me enough and like my content enough to actually send me money to do it.
Right.
So I mean, it's crazy. But when I look at channels that have 55 subscribers, but they see that YouTube is changing their policy, so they're going to create a Patreon page to get money that way. To me, a lot of times it just looks like you're only in it for the money. You're only in this to walk away with a paycheck. You're not really in it because you enjoy it or because you have the passion for it or because you honestly want to put the groundwork in. You just want the quickest avenue to the dollar. And that's not the case for everybody. I'm sure that there are some channels that just see it and they go, oh, well, why not? I'll just do a Patreon page. Fuck it. But, just my own personal opinion, you should be at a certain level before you consider it, just because you bring part of that culture that Patreon is bad comes from channels like that have a Patreon, but they do 1 video a month and they have 5 subscribers. Now, getting into that whole culture of Patreon is bad and anybody that uses it is bad. I was a part of I'm sure that's what you were alluding to. There was a huge firestorm on Killer Flicks back whenever YouTube did the whole limited monetization thing. And I did a video. Basically, all it was just explaining what this is, because all YouTubers were talking about it. They were tweeting about it. They were doing videos about it. You know, YouTube is destroying horror. It's destroying YouTube, and it's destroying creators. And everybody was always up in arms that isn't actually a creator, going, what the fuck are they doing? I don't understand. I don't understand what the controversy is. So all I did was did a video saying, hey, this is the way that YouTube used to work. This is the way that this monetization thing works. This is how it affects people. If you want to support people in this time, do A, B, or C. And I posted it on Killer Flicks as kind of just like this informative thing, and it ignited this entire ridiculous fucking debate over Patreon. And there was, you know, two people who shall remain nameless that basically held hands and, you know, frolicked through the flowers, calling everybody that used Patreon basically lazy. There was a guy that basically compared me to I forget the word. It was a lot nastier than the way that I'm going to make it sound, but basically a guy that sits at home all day, plays video games, films it, and expects people to pay him for it. And that right there is somebody that doesn't understand what Patreon is. They see it as this person who's talking about movies into a camera, which apparently is the easiest thing in the world, is wanting people to pay him for his thoughts. As if, and this comparison was made, doing a fully produced movie review is exactly the same as me walking into your living room and saying, hey man, Shape of Water was pretty good. This is why. And it's the fact that you had to sit there and explain, no, you actually put production into it. You put entertainment value into it. You dump actual hours into one video. You try to make the quality good for the sake of not only informing people of your opinion, but entertaining them while you do it. And if people are so inclined, they can go to your Patreon page if they like what you do. And it's totally optional. And yeah, you get a lot of people who they look at Patreon like that. They look at it as Cody sits at home in his free time, talks about movies, and expects people to pay him for it. And it's just, it pisses me off because I'm a hothead for one. But when people, it's mostly because of the word choices of those that are on the opposite side. They don't really come at you as like this respectful other side of the argument. They come at you as if they're trying to like shame you. How dare you ask me for money? You know what I mean? And it's just like, you totally don't get it at all. And this is why you're a dick face.
Have you ever gone into a video making process, or, you know, at various stages of creating a video or getting an idea for video, and during that process think to yourself, oh yeah, this is going to cause a bit of a shitstorm? And has that thought ever influenced one way or another how quickly or whether or not you cancel the process entirely?
Multiple times that's happened, where I know while I'm filming it, while I'm editing it, and even before I turn on the camera, this is going to start some shit. And it doesn't change my process at all. It's not something where I don't post videos for the sake of starting a fire. Like, I'm not like, you know, I'm going to adjust this ranking slightly just because it's going to piss people off. Like, I put my genuine 100% honest thoughts out there. Like when I do a Halloween ranking and I put Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 over Halloween 4, I explain why, and those are my honest thoughts. I don't look at it as, oh, you know, this is going to start some stuff. Maybe just for the sake of not getting shit on, I'm going to move this around, or I'm going to cut that line out, or you know, I'm going to add a couple extra points to my rating at the end. You know, I don't worry about that at all, at all.
So does it maybe influence, like, is there maybe a video that you're like, I don't know, but the fact that, you know, you're going to have a bit of a hotbed discussion, or it's going to cause a bit of a storm, does it maybe push you over the edge to do a video to get that pot stirring?
Not necessarily. I don't really jump. I'm not somebody that, like, I can't wait to be the guy that starts this fire. I just, whenever I, like Cult of Chucky, perfect example. Everybody was excited about it. Everybody was losing their shit when they found out that it was available to watch. Everybody was, you know, not everybody, but for the most part, the first early reactions were very positive. And I watched the movie, and by the end, I'm going, I have to get my thoughts out there because I know this is going to be a controversial opinion. and it needs to be said because there's going to be tons of people talking about it's the greatest Chucky since Child's Play 2, and I am on the complete other end of the spectrum, so I need to get that opinion out there. Just for the sake of having a new opinion out there, not for the sake of I can't wait to set the Child's Play world on fire. So yeah, it's one of those things. Like when I see a movie, like when I saw Dunkirk, that's another perfect example. Everybody, like 1% of the world did not like that movie. And I was part of that 1%. I was falling asleep multiple times. It just didn't work for me. And you know, and it was one of those things where, unfortunately, it wasn't the best produced review because I was mid-move. But I put the review on there, and I acknowledged in the review, I was like, "Hey, most of you are going to really get pissed off at this opinion, but this is my honest thoughts on Dunkirk." And I put it out there. I try to explain that. That's my biggest thing. If I have a controversial opinion, I try to explain to the best of my ability why my opinion is that, because I found out one of the biggest things that will kind of shoot you in the foot is if you throw an opinion out there that people aren't going to like and you just don't explain it, because then you're gonna have to explain it 100 billion times in the comment section.
Eric asks, what was your first gaming console and game?
Sega Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Did that
my
come
dad
with
bought
it?
it for me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it came with it or not. It was a birthday. I think it was my 4th birthday. I didn't even know what the hell a game console was. My dad just hooked it up. Here you go. Threw the controller at me. And, you know, my world was changed. Oh, my God, what is this? And it was Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Mrs. Pac-Man, actually. So I guess that's a dual answer. But I don't know if it came with it or my dad just bought the 2 games that was sitting next to the box. But that was the answer.
So I'll tell the chat if you have any questions. We're going to get close to wrapping up, but I'll ask you what I always ask at the end now, just in case anybody wants to throw something in. So my channel name is What I Like It Reviews. I try to be as neutral as possible when I do reviews back in 2015. So if you were to come across, if you had to find somebody and say, you know what, you would like Cody Leach, the YouTube channel, who do you think would like your channel?
I think somebody that enjoys movies. I'll stick to movies because that's 90% of what I do. Even if you like music and video games, there's stuff there for you too every once in a while. But for the most part, if you enjoy movies, you like talking about movies, maybe you want to get more into the nitty gritty of it, aside from just, yeah, I liked it. No, I didn't. I try to be a very fine medium in being kind of a casual, you know, joking around, throwing some jokes in there, but also kind of being really articulate and trying to get into the fine details of, you know, the direction, the cinematography and stuff like that. I try to be kind of a fine medium there. So I think the best person for my channel is somebody that likes to talk movies on just kind of the casual side, but maybe has some interest in getting into more of the details of it. Because my dad's kind of the perfect example of that. He's seen a couple of my videos and he's like, I had no idea about this and this and this. I'm surprised you knew that. And he's much more the casual talker, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, this movie was good. I thought, you know, Jackie Chan was good in The Foreigner, and it was a little bit dark and gritty. It was cool. And then I'll get into more the fine details. So somebody of that nature, or somebody that just likes hearing a lot of crazy shit.
So Dennis says Cult of Chucky's tagline should be, well, not as bad as Seed.
Yeah, pretty low fucking bar.
That'll sell some units right there.
Yeah, that could be the tagline of most movies. 99% of movies that have been made, better than Seed of Chucky.
All right, so
the ice cream truck, better than Seed of Chucky.
I'd agree with that, actually. Yeah, I'll agree with that. So what do you have coming up on your channel in the near future?
I've got a video that I was recording part of earlier. I've got a patron request for a movie called Girl House. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was a 2014 slasher. I will be recommending it. So if you get a chance before I actually post a review, check it out. But yeah, I'm going to be doing that. It's a patron request video. Me and Lee are going to be both recording or both dropping reviews for the 1990 It on Friday. Hopefully, as long as nothing crazy happens on my end, we'll be dropping it on Friday. Already mentioned it, but I've got the Friday the 13th reviews, which I'm going to be kicking off here sometime at the beginning of February. So sorry. Yes, exactly. So CP may or may not make some quick appearances in some of those. At some point, I'm gonna rank the Rocky franchise and the Lethal Weapon franchise. I watched both of those. I was couch ridden sick for weeks in the holiday season, and I rewatched both of those franchises, and I was like, I want to rank these. I like these movies, so I'll be doing that eventually. And this is kind of breaking, I guess, because I never really said that I was going to do this anywhere else, and it's not going to be. Don't hold me to a time frame on it, but something that I thought would be kind of cool because I've been very vocal about my disdain for this director. I'm going to try my best to do a Rob Zombie review series because, a lot of his movies I've only seen once. A lot of them I've saw only when they came out, and I just want to see if over time my opinions might have changed. So at some point you'll see a House of a Thousand Corpses review drop. And then from there, you'll see some of the others. So it could be March, it could be June, but at some point that's going to happen.
Yeah. So your Patreon address is what? Cody Leach? Patreon.com/Cody Leach?
That's it.
And your socials?
Facebook, obviously you can just search my name. Instagram, I believe it's CJL Lone Wolf. That's kind of my old school thing that I've used on everything, and I were too lazy to change it. And Twitter, I believe, is the same thing with capital CJL. But you can also just search my name and on any of those three, and that's probably the quickest way to find me, honestly.
You have you're Cody Leach on Stardust too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
old Stardust. I always forget about that until somebody mentions, oh yeah, that's a thing to promote.
Yeah. It's so easy. You just record a thing for 30 seconds and then it's done. But it's to remember to do it is the process.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so everybody's saying a good happy hello. You got a new subscriber. I'm happy to help in that instance.
Hell yes.
Sasha likes your style.
Awesome. I like your style too, Sasha.
Yeah. So any last words before we say goodbye?
Thank you for the interview. It was a lot of fun. Very casual and professional, Mr. CP. So that was
take it.
How did Lee say it? I feel very comfortable in your arms, CP, or however he said it. I don't know. But yeah. Say it again in my velvety voice.
Velvety. Now we're both
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on. Anybody that's in the chat, thanks for watching. Thank you for any of the questions. If you are a subscriber, obviously, thank you for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, you're a motherfucker. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, keep an eye out for more collabs between me and this gentleman here.
Yeah. And thank you so much for joining me and helping my watch time before February 20th.
Yeah, exactly. Well, shit, let's keep going. Let's do an in-depth analysis of all of the Puppet Master movies. That'll give you 4,000 hours.
Let's watch Citizen Kane and do an analysis scene by scene.
Exactly.
Right. Well, for Cody, I'm CP. Have a day.